we are seeing that I really don't know where to start, but definitely, Hoida, I will follow up.
Thank you. So it looks like we finally worked this out and we are live. Yeah?
Do you want to use the camera?
We are seeing that I really don't know where to start, but definitely, Hoida, I will follow up.
Great. Thank you. So it looks like we finally worked this out and we are live. Yeah?
Do you want to use the camera?
We are seeing that I really don't know where to start, but follow up.
Use your
Thank you.
use your sound because the audio is going to be
We are live.
yeah, it's a delay. So use your audio. Can you? Your
Okay, sorry everyone for the delay. Seems that we are live now. Can you hear me okay?
Just a bit of
Hoida,
echo.
there is an echo. Probably if you do what you did before, muting yourself from your computer as it was before, because we could hear you. I don't know if it's...
I know.
Oh, now. Still on it. Okay. Testing.
You take yours off and yours off.
Testing.
So now it should be okay. Take yours off and yours off. That's the delay. That's the problem.
Testing. We keep hearing you.
Take yours off. The delay. That's the problem.
Maybe I can exit here and just use that.
I think so. I think so. Do that. Do that.
Okay.
Do that if you can.
Can you just change the name to my name or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everyone who's with us live, put 1 more minute. That worked.
Mm-hmm.
Is this good? No echo? This good? Yes? Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, finally, I'm sorry, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us while we figured out these technical glitches. But we are now live to you. I am coming to you from Catania, Sicily, and we have on this very special webinar with us Thiago Avila from the Madeleine, the Freedom Flotilla's vessel that recently set sail towards Gaza. And we also have with us, very honored to have with us, Dr. Luigi Daniele. I am going to just do brief intros and we're going to get an update from Thiago and start the discussion. To have with us Dr. Luigi Daniele. Dr. Luigi Daniele is an associate professor of international law at the University of Molise in Italy. His expertise spans international humanitarian law, human rights, and the legal responsibility of states and international organizations. Dr. Daniele has published extensively on the use of force, state accountability, and the legal implications of occupation and blockade. He's known for his incisive legal analysis and contributions to international law scholarship, and we are honored to have him here with us today. Also, of course, we are very honored to have the luminous Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. She's an international human rights lawyer and researcher with extensive experience in refugee law and international human rights law. Prior to her UN appointment, Albanese worked with the UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. She's the author of numerous reports and articles on displacement, occupation, and international legal obligations. She's also the co-author of a seminal book on Palestinian refugees called Palestinian Refugees in International Law, which was published by Oxford University Press in 2020. Co-written with Lex Stauffenberg, this comprehensive work examines the legal status and rights of Palestinian refugees under international law, offering both historical context and contemporary legal analysis. 2020. Of course, both Francesca Albanese and Dr. Daniele, their words resonate, especially in this time, as forceful, moral, and a legal compass, cutting through silence and complicity to demand what we're all demanding: justice, dignity, and freedom for the Palestinian people. And also with us here, we have my colleague, I'm honored to call friend, Thiago Avila. Thiago is a co-organizer of the Freedom Flotilla. He is from Brazil and is coming to us now from aboard the Madeleine, which has set sail to break the siege on Gaza. But his work is extensive in fighting for human rights and freedom and dignity for all people, making connections between struggles and recognizing that all of our struggles are interconnected, and therefore also the liberty is closely tied together. And so he has been in numerous countries, organizing with people and workers at all different levels, and the Palestinian people, speaking as a Palestinian, will say, honored to have Thiago really part of this liberation struggle. So without further ado, because you waited so long, of course, with us, let us start this conversation. And first, I would love to turn it over to Thiago, because we don't know how long you'll be able to stay with us. But Thiago, can you please give us an update on the Marine, when it left port, how many people are on there with you, what the mood is like, and why you have left your family to be on this mission?
Thank you very much, Freda, for being here. Pleasure and an honor to be sharing with you the work we are doing on the Madeleine. We are a group of 12 people from 7 different countries, from 3 different continents, and we are doing our very, very best to break the illegal that was imposed into Gaza for 18 years and to create a humanitarian sea corridor. Our idea is to carry whatever aid we can, and our boat is pretty small. It fits 12 people with an 18-meter sailboat, and we are carrying food, we're carrying medicine, we're carrying crutches, we're carrying water filters, hope of millions and millions of people who cannot stand. Children being starved to death, seeing hospitals bombed, shelter, forced displacement, seeing weapons prohibited by cities being used against civilians, and people, really the social majority of this world, abominate happening in Gaza and in all of Palestine. And yeah, we're part of this collective struggle. We are connected to the demonstration, we're connected to the BDS, we're connected to all of the work to break the media blockade and to break the boycott of the big tax that does not allow the truth to go forward. We are connected to everyone who understands that the Palestinians have the right to live in peace, have the right to self-determination, have the right to not be colonized and not suffer ethnic cleansing, because it's a process of now almost 8 decades. And then by then in 1947, almost 53% of the Palestinian territory was given to a colonizing entity, and then 2 years later it was already 78%, and in 1967, 100% of military occupation of that area. And then 18 years ago started horrific siege, and 600 days ago, this genocide escalates to a level that is unparalleled in so many levels, and shocks the world. And for almost 3 months, not a single bottle of water, not a single bag of rice entered Gaza. And now they are trying to create like a publicity stunt to create military checkpoints disguised as humanitarian aid centers, part of the forced displacement, part of the ethnic cleansing that we can never, never, never accept. So our mission is to go and contribute to the historical task of our generation, which is to challenge this horrific ideology, which is racist, which is supremacist, which is Zionism. And we are doing this because the governments fail, because the institutions have failed the Palestinian people. We know that the UN Security Council, an ICJ, an ICC, Israel could never be doing what they're doing. And still they continue to do. So it's our job, it's our work, collective work as humanity, to do whatever we can to stop the genocide. Every generation that comes after us is going to talk about this moment. And it's very, very important that we do our best, our very best, to break the siege, to do our contribution to these historical moments. So I'm here as a proud father of a 1 year and 4 months and 21-day-old baby girl called Teresa. And all of us here, we have families, and we wish we didn't have to do this. But families just like ours are being bombed, and children just like my baby, they are being amputated without anesthesia for 1 year and 9 months, and we cannot stay still. So the Madeleine is setting sail. We finally left Catania, and we are sailing at 6 knots per hour, and we expect to reach Gaza in 7 days. And we know the risks. We know how violent they are. They just bombed our mission 4 weeks ago. They killed 10 of our participants 15 years ago. And what we know is that despite their hate, despite their violence, we are part of something huge. The social majority of the world will not be stopped right now. And just like we defeated apartheid, just like we defeated other hateful ideologies throughout the centuries and the decades, we will defeat this one as well. And the Palestinian people will have the right to be free. And we are just people here to echo Palestinian voices and to be at the service of this collective struggle. That's why we're here in the Madeleine.
Thank you so much, Thiago. I think I can definitively say that you have the hearts and minds of millions sailing with you. And indeed, it is the collective of all of us, of the millions that we are asking to have eyes on the Madeleine, that will hopefully help to keep you safe. Although we know we have been witnessing a live stream genocide, and the horror and outrage of millions has not kept Palestinians safe. We are not giving into the violence. You and the other 11 brave sailors on board are making that loud and clear, as are the millions who are with us, who are watching, who are sharing, who are demanding safe passage, and who are demanding an end to this genocide. With that, I would love to turn it over and start talking a bit about the legal context, because we are frequently, is what you're doing lawful? What are the laws that protect you? Is what Israel doing lawful, or what laws govern Israel's control of Palestinian territory and violence that they have used against the flotilla before, including last month, and the anticipated, or very likely, unfortunately, force that they might use against the Madeleine. Francesca, if I can start with you. If you would like to speak to us a little bit, please, about why we Thiago spoke about, he said, we wish we didn't even have to be here, leaving our families to do this. But we do have to do this because it seems like the institutions that are designed to protect are failing. Are they? And what does that mean for what we're doing and for moving forward?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad you are in Catania because Catania is a city that means so much to me, although Tiago has and the other Flotilla giants, as I call them, have left. So good luck, Tiago, and everyone on the boat, and safe sailing till Gaza. So first of all, I would like to comment on why I am here with you. Although I'm from the other side of the Mediterranean in Tunisia, I'm here with you to really express all my support. And I know that many other independent experts of the United Nations stand by me in doing that. And you will hear our voice loud and clear in the coming days, because what you are doing is really upholding the humanity that is left. And it's a lot, because while power continues to side with power, being it political, being it diplomatic, being it economic, there are so many people that are sick and tired of seeing every day what Israel is doing to the Palestinians in Gaza, but also in the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory. And therefore, from my place of humanity to yours, of course, it's an imperative for me as a human rights lawyer, as a special rapporteur, as a human being, as a mother, like Thiago, as a parent myself, to be with you. Because the children of Palestine are also our children. The second element, it's because of international law. International law has clear obligations that have been violated through and through for decades. Had a bare minimum of respect for international law been ensured, been observed in the past, we wouldn't be here. But the point is that today, the fact that member states who are obliged to respect and ensure respect for international humanitarian law in times of war, if these were something called that we can call a war. And all the more, member states are obliged to take measures to prevent, to stop, and to punish genocide. And they've clearly failed. So it's in the name of international law and what remains of it, the need to respect it, because the system that is premised upon international law risks to collapse, to fall on our head. And I often say the international human rights system, the international system, multilateralism, has not served everyone equally. But we in the West have benefited the most of it. The longest peace ever has been registered in the West. And we will miss very much human rights where we'll not have them anymore. And so thank you for upholding international law while the first duty bearers, member states, are failing to do so. And it's on these member states that I call upon today by saying all member states around the Mediterranean, if they had a minimum of integrity, should follow you, should protect you, should stand behind you and follow your lead. But as a minimum, they should ensure your protection. So I truly look forward to seeing the UK not withdrawing the flag, knowing that you are motivated to continue. But again, you deserve protection, and to both political, diplomatic, and humanitarian protection, not as it has happened before. By the way, I also call for true accountability, starting with an independent investigation over the recent incident that happened to the previous flotilla boat that tried to reach Gaza. And the last point is humanitarian. What we have seen in the past 3 months is not that it's not that what preceded is dignified in any possible way. But this is the final collapse. This is the nail in the coffin of humanitarianism, whatever it means. The United Nations, multilateralism, multilateral organizations who have the responsibility to deliver humanitarian aid in situation of emergencies have been put aside in order for a Piratex, to allow a Piratex system concocted by Israel and the United States, the states most responsible for what has been happening to Gaza, to handle the distribution of aid, which is absolutely not the distribution of aid. This is a sadistic and cruel exercise to yet again humiliate and oppress the Palestinians in Gaza, even as they're starving and resisting the horror that has plummeted upon them, that has fallen upon them. So what I would like to say in concluding these initial remarks is that I fully and unequivocally stand behind you. International law is with you. Stay safe, stay peaceful, and we will be the eyes and ears for you on the ground, doing the best we can to make sure you reach the population of Gaza and you manage to break the siege. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much, Francesca, for those words. And yes, I think so many of us are wondering how we can live in a global system or global legal order where a country that is on trial for genocide gets to decide what, if any, aid gets to a people they are trying to exterminate. How can we let that be? And that is our frustration with our countries, that they aren't doing anything, that they aren't putting their aid on ships and sailing and confronting Israel and saying, we're not going to respect your illegal siege. You have no authority to control Gaza. All of the trucks that are waiting at Rafah, I know those are mainly various humanitarian organizations, but we can't wait. We can't continue to wait for Israel to give the permission. But what would it mean? Like, what does it mean, Luigi? And sorry, I've resorted to, we're all on first name terms here. What does it mean that we are saying, yeah, challenge, break the siege? How legal are we in setting sail to do that, in calling for that, and in not respecting and not abiding by Israel's control and closure of Gaza?
Many thanks, Wade. It's honestly my honor to be with you today, with Francesca. As I think Yolanda Diaz said, this is not only a humanitarian crossing, this is a moral crossing that the Flotilla and the Madeleine crew is putting on itself. You are showing that actually at the exact antipode of the genocidal incitements we have heard from the Israeli leadership in front of the systematic massacre of 20,000 kids and 60,000 civilians, and actually likely many more, there is no uninvolved human being on earth. There is no uninvolved institution. There is no uninvolved state. And that's not only a moral claim, it's a legal claim. The jurisprudence of the International Court of Justice is clear on the truly universal reach of the duties to prevent genocide under the Genocide Convention. So you asked me about the siege. I remember that already in 2005, not an activist organization, but actually a quite cautious and conservative one, as the ICRC, the most eminent international humanitarian organization, declared the blockade of Gaza unsustainable, unlawful, and affirmed that merely lifting it bit by bit was insufficient to meet the basic needs of the Gaza population. But now we are facing something completely different, an entire abyss of, as Tiago was saying, hundreds, thousands of kids amputated without anesthesias. Medical surgeons operating with the lights of their mobile phones. The vulnerable already dying of starvation. We shouldn't even say anymore dying of, we should say killed. The distinction itself between direct war killing, which basically is the paradigm under which agencies count the victims, the direct victims of armed conflicts, and the indirect war victims at this point is very questionable, because the removal of access to all the goods indispensable for the survival of the civilian population in its land for the survival of Palestinians in Gaza are being either targeted by bombs, destroyed willfully when the Israeli army takes control of hospitals. We have witnessed with our own eyes platoons of the IDF destroying MRI equipment in the last cancer hospitals in Gaza. Not to talk about the water resources and the food. So I think that the gravity of this total siege is captured by the violation of many fundamental pillars of international law. Firstly, the Geneva Convention, putting on states not only an obligation to let humanitarian aid in for civilians, but to actively facilitate it. So imagine how far is Israel from this positive obligation. Then we have a war crime in the Rome Statute of starvation, which is why actually Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant are sought by the International Criminal Court. This crime includes impeding the arrival of relief supplies as provided by the Geneva Convention. But then we have the Genocide Convention. So I think Francesca's reports have already said the most important things when it wasn't politically convenient, when the wind hadn't changed yet, about why the conduct of hostilities of Israel in Gaza in itself is genocidal. But in terms of the Genocide Convention, we should remember, and this is strongly linked to the blockade, that one of the most important genocidal conduct codified, prohibited by the Convention, is the deliberate infliction on the victim group of conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. This bit of the definition is systematically removed by media, political, and executive commentaries. Calculated to means that the crime is configured even if those conditions haven't produced a single death. It will be an offense of pure conduct if we were talking under the Italian Criminal Code. So it's no more a danger, it's no more a risk, which per se should be sufficient to trigger the prevention by third states, is entirely committed. This is not the only thing that I can tell you in the answer, because you asked me about the blockade. Well, the International Court of Justice, in its latest advisory opinion, has declared the Israeli military presence in the entirety of the occupied Palestinian territory completely without legal title and actually contrary to jus ad bellum, to the jus cogens norms of the UN Charter. Basically, the Israeli occupation is a continuous act of aggression against Palestine and Palestinian self-determination. So how the Madeleine mission is framed, you know, in this wider picture of most serious, massive, and systematic breaches of international law. The Madeleine is a civilian vessel bringing humanitarian aid, is not posing, of course, any threat to the executives, the states of any of the territorial waters that it will cross. It enjoys fully the right to innocent passage in the international waters it will cross. And we know that Israeli military control on Palestine territorial waters has no valid legal title for the International Court of Justice and therefore for international law, which means that there is absolutely no authority with any title to interrupt, intercept in any way the mission of the Madeleine. So not only you deserve all our moral, political, civil support because you are doing the heavy lifting that we should all be doing, but your action is entirely lawful. Actually, it comes to my mind a book by a colleague of Francesca, Balakrishnan Rajagopal, who wrote a book called International Law from Below, which was precisely theorizing the possibility for international law, which is like any other human abstraction and institutionalization, a field of conflict, to be used by civil society actors, by organization of conscience, by subaltern and oppressed worldwide, to employ it as an emancipatory tool for the most vulnerable. And this is exactly what you are doing. Let me add one thing, and then I want to leave time to the question and the other interventions. In the past, there were already war crimes configured against Israel by the International Criminal Court for the Mavi Marmara attacks. Attacking a civilian vessel is a war crime. Actually, it will technically be an act of aggression against the flagship state. So I cannot imagine a more unlawful act than committing a war crime to preserve the outcomes of another war crime, that of starvation, which is being committed to preserve the outcomes of the crime of the crimes, which is genocide. Because we know, not for expansive definitions or sociological or historical understandings, but for legal definitions, that the intent to forcibly displace the entirety of a population from its land can be a genocidal conduct. And there was an opening from this point of view by the International Court of Justice itself in paragraph 163 of the Bosnia versus Serbia judgment. Not to mention the judgments in the jurisprudence of the International Criminal Tribunal, which openly admitted this possibility. So everything is there. Nearly every crime codified in the last 80 years of development of international law is being committed. And that's why you deserve not only all the support from us, lawyers, other academics, media, but you would deserve a much stronger positioning of our politics, particularly in the EU, because we know that projectiles are still being sold to Israel and are departing from European ports. And those very bullets are then being extracted from the head, the chest of 5-year-old kids. So it is unconscionable that our state authorities not only are not preventing genocide as they should, but they are actively siding with the chain of profits that is being extracted from Palestinian civilians' blood as if it was oil. So that's what I have to say, and maybe hopefully other profiles of discussion will emerge from questions, but just thanks again. My strongest and most outraged solidarity.
You mentioned, first of all, thank you. You mentioned the Mavi Marmara, and yesterday marked 15 years since Israel launched a lethal assault on the 2010 Freedom Flotilla, and it killed 10 of our volunteers and was never held accountable. And I want to ask a question, but I know that Francesca's time with us is slowly, actually quickly dwindling. So before she has to go, I wanted to direct this question towards her. In 2010, the UN appointed an independent commission to investigate the attack on the Freedom Flotilla. And amongst the things that it found is that back in 2010, Israel's blockade on Gaza was unlawful. The commission found that the blockade was having a disproportionate harmful effect on the civilian population, making it illegal. And because the blockade was unlawful, Israel's interception of the Mavi Marmara, of the flotilla as a whole, was unlawful. And because intercepting the ship was unlawful, any forced use to effect that interception was unlawful. That report was adopted by the UN Human Rights Council. Of course, the United States voted against it, but the US doesn't have a veto in the UN Human Rights Council. Even though the United States had a citizen killed on board, which the report found that citizen, 19-year-old Furkan Dugan, was most likely executed by Israeli force, the US voted against that report. Nothing was ever done to hold Israel accountable. We tried, I was on that flotilla and was on a US flagged ship and tried suing in the United States also. The US intervened to get that lawsuit dismissed on the basis of sovereign immunity. So we have this situation where we have a complete lack of accountability. Of course, we know when it comes to Palestinian lives, the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands massacred and maimed. But is the flotilla protected under international law? If Israel should launch an assault and harm the people on board the Madlin, what are the obligations of the countries, of the civilians who are on board? We have about 7 countries represented on board that flotilla. What are their obligations if Israel launches this unlawful assault on the flotilla? Maybe Francesca, if you could take that one, and then any kind of concluding remarks before you have to leave us.
Yes, I will, Hueda, if you don't mind, I would like to answer this by leaving some details because of lack of time. I really have a few minutes only, and I apologize for that. But I would like to comment on accountability available for Palestinians at this stage, because there are so many avenues that are opening, and some of them definitely apply to the flotilla as well. Luigi has already mentioned some of these aspects, the fact that the kind of protection under international law that accompanies the flotilla. But let me take one step back to what you said. You rightly pointed to the fact that the blockade that Israel imposed on the Palestinians in Gaza in 2007 and was already 17-year-old when Israel launched its ongoing assault in 2023. But this was already a war crime, a collective punishment imposed on the Palestinians on Gaza. And again, it was recognized by even conservative bodies like the ICRC, but there was a wall-to-wall consensus in the international community at the UN and international human rights organizations that this was a criminal conduct. On top of it, there have been commissions of inquiry, not just on the flotilla, but on wars that Israel has unleashed against the Palestinians in 2008, 2012, 2014. Then there are, of course, other crimes that have occurred in the subsequent wars that were not fully investigated. And this is a serious problem. So I also encourage the Commission of Inquiry to take the lead on systematic documentation of what has been happening in the occupied Palestinian territory, particularly in Gaza, because we need to, the Commission of Inquiry on Israel-Palestine has the capacity to collect and preserve the evidence for liability, so for the ICC, but also for other criminal trials. And here's the point. I think that now more than ever, Palestine is once again showing the possibility for accountability. There is no issue that the international standards have been violated through and through. The point is there has not been enough, until now, enough exploration of justiciability avenues for Palestinians with double nationality, for companies who profit and who are engaged with or involved in crimes in the occupied Palestinian territory. And of course, Israelis themselves as political leaders are executing agents of these the various crimes that have been committed. So there is room. What I'm trying to say, and I would like people to get away with from my remarks, is that we need to try to advance accountability as it has never been done before. People ask me, will there be something like the Nuremberg trials for Palestine? We must ensure that there is something like the Nuremberg trials, but not in the form as the Nuremberg trials, the justice of the vanquisher. It should be the justice prompted from below. And in each country where there is the possibility to access courts, being them civil courts or criminal courts, they should be activated to initiate proceedings to ensure justice and accountability for the Palestinians. Anyone who has been involved in and profiting from what has happened to the Palestinians should be held accountable. And just briefly, because again, I think that Luigi is even better placed than me to elaborate on this. Of course, if there are citizens of a state and get affected, injured, hurt in any possible way, that state should definitely take the lead in a proceeding against Israel. The point is that this was also true during the case of the Mavi Marmara, where many victims were Turkish nationals. And as far as I know, there has not been advancement in this respect. So again, because eventually it boils down to member states, I think that this time more than ever, courts should be activated by individuals. And this is true for every incident that takes place, which also leads me to the last point. This is the time for civil society to realign their priorities and their and find a way to unite. This is the time to defend the defenders, to put resources so that people who need also to activate the justice system have all the means to do that. Being the brothers and sisters on the flotilla right now, the flotillas to come in the future, and anyone else who's busy trying to end the genocide, the occupation, and apartheid. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, as I said, I have to go, but I wish you best of luck and continuation for the discussion that I will follow later on.
Thank you so much, Francesca. Thank you for being here and for all of the work that you do. You've really, truly been a light and a force that give people so much hope. Thank you. Luigi, if you have, I know we're running over time. If you have a few minutes to stay with us, just a couple more questions. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, when Israel attacked the 2010 flotilla, one of the things that it did is it stormed our boats. Of course, we know that it killed our colleagues and injured and maimed others, but it's completely detained everyone else. I would say kidnapped, took hostage everyone else, and it took our cameras, our phones, any recording equipment that we had, and then kept us incommunicado for days while it put its story out to the world that we were violent and connected with various groups, all lies meant to justify, which it doesn't justify, but to justify its brutal attack on us. Now we are getting ready to put forth a letter that we're asking people all over the world to send to Israel, to let them know that the whole world is watching, that the Madlin is a civilian vessel, it is unarmed, it has 12 civilians on board, and humanitarian aid, sailing from European waters through international waters to Palestinian waters. Any attack on this vessel or on anyone board will be a deliberate, calculated attack on civilians, which is a war crime. So what I'm saying is Israel is on notice publicly, and the world is helping us put Israel on notice through directly contacting them and saying, you know what this ship is, refrain from attacking. And if it does anyway, where are we in terms of what is possible to do? I know that's a difficult question because of the lack of accountability that we've been seeing and that we are horrified by, but please
Thanks.
give us some
Thanks.
legal analysis and hope.
Thanks, Weda. It's not for giving hope that I will tell you what I'm going to tell you. It's just because the legal situation is now radically different. First, for the lethal attacks, when you were there on the flotilla, there were already war crimes actually configured by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. It's just there was a sort of jurisdictional glitch. It was considered that those crimes were not of sufficient gravity to justify the opening of an investigation. But already the legal battle was quite to the last judgment. There was the appeals chamber involved. What is different now? That we have now cases already and a situation entirely developing at the International Criminal Court. So nobody would have to demonstrate the sufficient gravity of this specific potential war crime. That's not the only thing. There would be a functional connection with, at the very least, an ongoing war crime of starvation. Plus, there is an a UK, flag on the ship, which is also the state of the prosecutor. So I would say that all the facts are now pointing toward a much higher possibility of accountability. And I'm just only considering, for now, the International Criminal Court. For the legal and jurisdictional reasons I told you. But that's not the only thing, because members of the crew of European states will be entitled to jurisdictionally complain before their state authorities and substantially asking, what have you done to protect your citizen that was engaged in an entirely lawful action against the criminal action of an ally who you knew had just done something similar to another vessel in international waters, and that's why they don't officially vindicate responsibility for that attack. And I believe that even in the worst case scenario, so let's say that through technicalities, these state authorities manage to deny justice to the complainants before domestic jurisdiction, at that point, there will be the European Court of Human Rights. So all these jurisdictional levels are pointing toward accountability on a much stronger note than in the past, and with the complete loss of control of the narrative worldwide by the same forces that have been basically performing apology for international crimes for the past 19 months. So, yeah, that's legally what I can point toward.
Oh, thank you. That is so significant, because you're absolutely right. The prosecutor at the time in 2010, it was actually 2013, 14, I think, that there was the back and forth between the prosecutor and the appeals chamber. But talking about the sufficiency of the actions, whether they were severe enough to open an ICC investigation. The prosecutor did not look at the attack on us in the context of the attacks that Israel perpetuates in order to maintain an illegal the occupation of the Palestinian territories and to maintain an unlawful blockade. So it's not an isolated attack on the 2010 flotilla. And as I think you were alluding to, if they attack again and harm the civilians on board, it would not be looked at as an isolated incident. It is part of this overall pattern of unlawful behavior to maintain control, to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and that's what we're seeing. So if I understood you correctly, you're saying if it should happen again, we'd be in a different place, because it's so clear now that this unlawful action would be part of a pattern of unlawful actions, and we could have a higher chance of moving it forward in the International Criminal Court, and of course, as you said, the domestic courts of these countries where the people on board are coming from. Unfortunately, in the United States, it's abysmal. I was personally on a vessel called the Challenger in the 2010 flotilla. That Challenger, that vessel was a US flagged ship. And we brought a lawsuit in the United States because we were brutalized, tortured aboard that ship. Luckily, no one was killed, but Israel attacked a US flagged ship in international waters and terrorized, brutalized, tortured US civilians on board. That should have provided an exception in US law to foreign sovereign immunity, where foreign states have immunity for things that they do. The exception in US law is when acts of terror or other defined unlawful acts are committed on US soil. Unfortunately, again, the US argued against that interpretation and intervened in the federal courts to get the courts to drop that lawsuit. So we are still battling in the US, but we know that other jurisdictions have much better laws, and so many attorneys are working to pursue justice and accountability using their domestic courts in addition to the international courts. So we had I'm trying to cover the questions that we got. I think between you and Francesca and myself, we probably covered the ones that were asked. There is one that asked, what after the Madeleine? Is there something else after that? And I do want to take a minute to say this flotilla and the Madeleine is part of a global initiative to break the siege by land, sea, and air. So we have in a few days a convoy that's going to leave from Tunisia to go through Libya and into Egypt and Rafah, hopefully on to Gaza. And a few days after that, we have on June 12th, there is the Global March to Gaza. And people can look up how to join the Global March to Gaza, where people will be coming into Egypt and heading to Rafah, also insisting on getting to Gaza. And then we have a diplomatic convoy that is working on the diplomatic level to get states to support this effort to break Israel's illegal stranglehold and control of Gaza. So this is civil society doing what states should have done a long, long time ago. This is civil society fighting for a country and a law-based international system which respects human rights of all people. It's not might is right in some country and some people can do what they want and others are brutalized by the system. It is a battle that we must win as international civil society fighting for human rights. And it is one that I believe we will win. The question is, how many more people will we have to see dismembered and burned and starved before we get there? Let me ask on that note, because it is difficult to start talking about that, and we're trying to focus here on the legal aspect because people want to know so much, like what they can do. I will repeat that people can, please, we're calling on you to share our reports, our social media, our handles, follow us. You can track the Madeleine online. You'll find us on all platforms. We are going to be streaming from the Madeleine when we can and putting out as much information as we can, forward it to your policymakers, to your government, and demand that they press Israel not to attack us. Not to attack us. They have an obligation to do so, but they don't do what they need to do without pressure from civil society. And so we're all part of that. But Luigi, I want to leave the last couple of minutes to you for any closing remarks. And I want to thank you so much for staying past the time when we promised you would be, that you would be with us. You've been very generous with your time and so insightful, but I do want to leave the last few minutes to you to say what we might not have covered.
No, nothing that we haven't covered, but maybe I'll just add a few words to what you were saying, which is crucial. Everyone that is listening to us and all those who are following the activities of the Madeleine, we really need to do an extra bit of effort now in writing to our MPs, to European MPs, to our local authorities, to artists, to media workers, journalists, to pressure protection for the Palestinians, first of all, but for the Madeleine, which will be more directly connected to the duties of our governments toward their own citizens, not because we believe that as European citizens, our right to life is any different from the right to life of Palestinians, but just because it is an occasion to push them to protect the right to life, individual and collective, to their survival in their land of Palestinians. Because, you know, and that's the last thing I want to tell you. For too long now, we have witnessed that the same forces that are exterminating Palestinians completely unmaking, corrupting our democratic processes. Public opinions in Western countries were already in the vast majority against this 12 months ago. And still, we were hearing whitewashing language, shameful language from media, from politicians, from government officials, when not directly apology of international crimes. So this shows that the struggle to liberate Palestinians from this extermination, from this unlawful occupation, and from the apartheid they have been subjected to for too long is not just a struggle for Palestinians. It's a struggle to radically remake, renew our democratic processes, because we have been stripped, of course, to a different extent, but we have also been stripped of the possibility to contribute democratically to the foreign policy of our countries. So thank you of the Flotilla, because you give us yet another occasion for doing so.
Thank you so much, Luigi. You know, you're absolutely right in that we're focusing on the Madeleine right now, the flotilla, and how do we keep it safe, not because keeping international safe is more important than keeping Palestinians safe, or that because international lives and Palestinian lives are different, but because exactly as you said, the citizens of these various countries have an obligation to their citizens. One of the most important jobs of government is keeping their citizens safe. And their citizens are now engaged in a completely lawful act that is at risk of, of a very brutal attack that jeopardizes the lives of the people who are engaged in this attack. And what they're doing, the citizens, is carrying humanitarian aid, of course, but the Madeleine is so small, and the humanitarian aid on board is a drop in 5 oceans of what Gaza needs. But what Gaza needs more than aid is freedom. So what I'm saying is that aid on board is symbolic, and we know that, but we've had the people of Italy coming by and donating so many things: baby formula, Pampers, flour, rice, all of these things that are on the boat, and medicine, all of this desperately needed, but a drop in the ocean. And it is meant to, the act itself is meant to encourage others to stop waiting for Israel to give us permission. And that humanitarian aid needs to get in, but Palestinians don't want to live on humanitarian aid. They never did. From our first mission in 2008, we said this isn't about perpetuating the humanitarian aid kind of dependency system, because Palestinians tell us over and over, we don't want your aid. We want you to stop collaborating with our oppressors. We want our freedom. So yes, break the siege, break down the walls of this extermination camp that Israel has created, but not just to get in aid, to demand that Israel end its crimes, has no authority in Gaza or any other parts of occupied Palestine. And the world has to rise up and demand that our country stop colluding to Israel, to stop allowing Israel to continue this. And I think, as you said, we are getting there. And we know that the law is not our savior, but the law is on our side. And to make the law work, we have to create the political will. That is everyone that is tuned in here. Thank you, Luigi, and of course, Francesca, for providing that kind of moral clarity and explaining the law to people and letting us know that we are on the right side of law. And we know, of course, we are on the right side of history, but also on everyone tuning in here and listening later in what you will do to ensure that we protect the sanctity of the law, make sure that our countries do not destroy it, and act to preserve, of course, life now in Gaza, but our future of our children, the country that we're passing along to them, is that it be a country that is not a country, sorry, a world that is governed by respect for life and everybody's life and everybody's rights and freedom, irrespective of your nationality or religion or anything else. That is what we're fighting for. And Luigi, I hope you agree with me that it is a fight that we must win and we will win. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Please do again follow the Madeleine. And yes, after the Madeleine, there will be another sailing. We will not stop. We did not stop after the 2010 attack on our flotilla. We did not stop after they bombed us last month. We launched this boat, and inshallah in Arabic, we say in the coming weeks, you'll be seeing yet another initiative that we will be in it together until the siege is broken, until Gaza is free, until Palestine is free. With that, I will bid you good morning, good night, and free Palestine, and may Palestine free us all.